Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WTF podcast, Week 2 in the NFL, brought to you by Steel City Underground. My name is Terry Fletcher. So a lot to unpack. I'm still reeling from the Steeler game on Monday Night Football. I'm telling you, what a nail biter. I'm sure you could hear me all the way from California, and you can hear I've still lost my voice, screaming last night, thinking, oh my gosh, we're winning. Oh my gosh, what did they do? Oh my gosh, we're back. So a lot to definitely look at. So when we're looking at week 2, one of the things that you always have to look at is 0-1 teams. There's the one thing you don't want to do, and that's start the season 0-2. Since the playoffs expanded to 14 teams in 2020, only about 4% of teams, 1 in 23 actually, based on NFL statistics, have bounced back from an 0-2 start to make the postseason. Well, that's not great news for Bengals, believe it or not, with the football, Patriots, and Chargers, 3 teams that are now 0-2 after losing on Sunday. Now, the Bengals just happened to not only sign their new several million-dollar man, but they also are a team from last year that recovered from an 0-2 start to make the playoffs. But they're going to need some magic to work that again. And just as a Steelers fan, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Now, speaking of magic, the Giants and Commanders both seem to have some in week 2. The Giants tied the largest comeback in franchise history when they overcame a 28-7 deficit to beat the Cardinals 31-28. And the Commanders, they beat the Broncos 35-33 after trailing 21-3. I'm actually sad for Josh Dobbs, the Cardinals quarterback in wait, because he did a great job with Kyler Murray still out, a total of 4 games. So he's got another couple of games before he's even back, even potentially on the field. So I thought he did a great job, but unfortunately the defenses, and when they come back like that, you can't blame the offense. It's the defense or the defensive coordinator or special teams. It's, you get this huge lead by 20 or plus points, and if you blow it, you got to look at the defense and who can't stop the other team. So in saying that, let's take a look at what's going on around the league on WTF with the football weekend. So first, I do want to start with the Steelers like last week, because for the second straight week, the offense really didn't show up. But first of all, let's talk about Nick Chubb. And I did go back and replay what they wouldn't play on TV, which is a good thing they didn't, because it was a brutal knee injury to Nick Chubb. And we just hope and pray it's just season ending and not career ending. But it's bad. So, and it's on the same knee he injured in 2015. And actually, a WTF moment out to, ESPN's Adam Schefter. He puts all the stats out about everything that was torn and the injury and everything in a tweet. And then he, halfway through it, after people probably just saw it and went, oh my God, that it was from 2015. You can't do that. You need to start off with the year you're talking about. Otherwise, you're definitely giving some false assumptions to people. And that was just terrible. So when the Browns signed Deshaun Watson, I bet they thought they solved all their problems at quarterback. But did they really? So he really, I would think, almost single-handedly, and this is my opinion, gave this game away, because he threw a pick 6 on the very first play of the game and a fumble that was returned for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. So we've got Highsmith and TJ Watt doing what they do. We love those bookends. But also, Deshaun Watson had 2 face mask penalties that ended up being personal fouls and cost the team 30 yards on penalties. So come on, what are you doing there? The Browns' rushing attack was the only part of their offense that was really working, and they actually had Jerome Ford step in, and he did run for 106 yards. But because of all their mistakes, it was just terrible. So 1 week after shutting down Cincinnati, they really only held the Steelers to 255 yards on offense. Now, they got a strong performance from a lot of their team except for Deshaun Watson. I knew that was a bad pickup as soon as they did it, but you know what? Couldn't happen to a nicer team. So the Steelers, again, their offense didn't really show up, but what an exciting game. I mean, we only scored 3 touchdowns in this game, and 2 were from the defense. Alex Highsmith totally star. And by the way, I have 2 fantasy teams that you have to pick 4 defensive players, not just a defense. Highsmith and TJ Watt I have on 2 different leagues. Highsmith scored me 29 points and TJ Watt scored me 19.5. So between the pick 6 on the first play and then he forced a fumble from Deshaun Watson in the fourth quarter that TJ Watt picked up for a touchdown. It was crazy. And our defense beat up Watson, who got sacked 6 times. Now, the offense did have one big play. And, for those of you haters out there, stop picking on Kenny. Is he having some struggles in some games early? Yes. But we know what he does late in the season. We know he's also got, oh my gosh, he's got Matt Canada in his ear from the booth. And I don't know about you, but we could hear on the TV, not even being in the stadium, we could hear the Fire Matt Canada chants in the crowd. So I put the blame on him because Kenny, still being young in his second year, he's following what he's supposed to be doing as far as his OC is telling him. And yes, he can make adjustments in the game, but if you don't have the weapons you need to make those adjustments, it's tough. But he did throw a great slant, a 71-yard touchdown catch by George Pickens. But other than that, it was rough for Kenny. So where we're hoping the Steelers are going to take a big step forward this offseason on the offensive side, I just don't know what they're going to do if they don't start to adjust or even get Mike Tomlin in there to play call. I know they don't like to do things till after the season, but can we really wait? Can we really wait? It drives me crazy that they just continue to do things over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So for me, that was the WTF moment. Now let's talk Bills Raiders. Okay, so as football fans, well, I should say as Steeler fans, we are not fans of the Raiders. No matter if they are in Los Angeles and Oakland and now in Vegas, we're just not fans of them. And I was never really a fan of Derek Carr, but some people are, but he's not really a favorite of mine. But the Bills basically exposed every hole in the Raiders roster, from Josh Jacobs, who missed all of training camp and is really rusty, to the GQ quarterback of the league, Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he's respectable enough, but he's not good enough to carry the entire offense on his own. And so that was very clear with a 38-10 win over Las Vegas. Now we play them next, and I say we, I mean the Steelers. I don't think we're going to have that much trouble. That would be a good game to get back on track offensively and then not work our defensive players so hard. Then you look at the Seattle game. Seattle 37-31 over Detroit. This game had definitely implications for me. I needed the Lions to win by 5.5 to win my parlay, but okay, whatever. But Geno Smith did a decent job. He played great in Detroit. And Seahawks were missing both of their starting tackles. Now, DK Metcalf had to leave the game at one point, but Tyler Lockett stepped it up. I mean, he just really came through, and the game-winning 6-yard touchdown pass to him in overtime, that was what did it for it. And Jared Goff, he was doing Goff things. And, that pick six with Trey Brown, what are you going to do there? So the WTF in there is that everyone has been just saying the Detroit Lions are the best thing ever. They're a decent team, but they've got some things to figure out as well. Tennessee over LA Chargers couldn't happen to a nicer team. I can't stop saying San Diego Chargers. Somebody from California, them being here for so many years, that's the last Steeler game I saw when actually Mike Vick was playing in that game. And so it's tough for me to call them LA Chargers and not San Diego still. But Chargers, they could not seem to convert a third down. So Justin Herbert put up some impressive numbers with 305 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they were only able to convert 2 of 14 third downs, so 2 first downs, and they couldn't score in the red zone. And so they had 5 trips down there. They did get 2 touchdowns, but there was just all kinds of interesting Brandon Staley moments. He punted on 4th and 1 at the Tennessee's 44-yard line. Nobody understood that. Now we know that he's usually being aggressive, but now it seems like they don't know who they are. And so the Titans beat them and came back. And, Derrick Henry just took over in the later half. Tampa Bay over Chicago. Who knew that Tampa Bay actually was going to be a decent team when Baker Mayfield stepped in for Tom Brady? Now, obviously, he's not basically taking over for Tom Brady. Let's not get crazy. But he's definitely doing enough where they are winning games. I think the one thing that is just so interesting to me, and I think it's actually going to make Derek Carr crazy in New Orleans, is the fact that they use that guy Taysom Hill, and they basically keep going back and forth from Carr to Hill, on who's the quarterback. And you could just see the frustration on, Derek Carr. His long ball throwing is just not there, and then he struggles at times. He does come up with some clutch throws late in the fourth quarter, and they did win the game. But they're I don't understand when you're down in the red zone, you're, within 10 yards of the end zone, and you're putting in Taysom Hill to throw 3 passes. And then you throw the last one where it's, it's fourth and long, and he's basically then told to keep it and run with it. Makes no sense to me, and totally gets your rhythm out of whack. So some other just interesting games: Baltimore over Cincinnati. I mentioned now Cincinnati's 0-2, 27-24, which means there's a lot of points scored there. Kansas City 17-19 over Jacksonville. Jacksonville's got actually a decent defense, and so this was interesting. Right tackle Jawan Taylor, the one that keeps lining up offsides, he has 5 penalties on the, what's going on. They were penalized 12 times for 94 yards, and he accounted for 5 of those penalties. So he was briefly actually benched after holding penalties, 2 holding penalties in 3 plays. Basically Andy Reid said enough is enough already. Travis Kelce and Chris Jones both made impacts now that they're in their season debut, and Kelce caught a touchdown. And we did see Jones out there making a difference with his 1.5 sacks. But for both of them, it was an ugly win for Chiefs, and it was an ugly loss for the Jaguars. They definitely had chances in that game, but just how they're using their offense is kind of a head scratcher. In the Atlanta 25-24 over Green Bay, Green Bay did everything they did but really finished this game. So I know it's tough because Jordan Love, he's out there doing, I guess, what he can do. He had 3 touchdown passes, no interceptions, a quarterback rating of over 120, and still lost the game. So, Falcons, they really feature their running game with Bijan Robinson, 172 yards from scrimmage, and some key plays on, 3rd and 4th downs. But to say that Atlanta is 2-0, who would have ever thought that? And then in one of the worst comebacks, I mentioned the Giants over Arizona, 31-28. Again, I'm just so sad for Josh Dobbs. I think he's doing such a great job, and he kind of got hosed over there. I just don't like it at all. Now, we knew the San Francisco 49ers were going to win over the Rams. The Rams is just a pedestrian team right now. So when you get pressure on Matthew Stafford, it just gets ugly because then he just starts throwing picks. Just anybody who can catch the ball. And so the 49ers, to me, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. They can beat you in so many ways. They beat you with the run with McCaffrey. They beat you with the pass. They have 5 different receivers that have multiple catches each. And then they just punch you in the mouth after that. So to me, they're the best team in the NFC, but arguably one of the better teams in the NFL as well. And it's crazy. I think it's really going to come down to how they keep their players healthy in the rest of the season. Dallas, I hate it when they win. They drive me crazy. For me, as a Steeler fan, they're like the Raiders. And I'm always like, oh, what the football. So they won the turnover battle 4-0 and the game by 30-10 over the Jets. The Jets are the Jets. They don't have Aaron Rodgers right now, and I know everybody's going to be saying that forever. Zach Wilson is who he is. So, they've got Micah Parsons on the Cowboys side, and there was a lot of interceptions. There was a couple of those Zach Wilson threw because of the pressure, and I just think it's going to be a really, really tough season for them moving forward. Now, with the Patriots 0-2, they were 0-2 the last time in 2001 when Tom Brady was there, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. But they don't have Tom Brady anymore. That's why I was laughing when people say, well, they did do this in 2001. It's like, yeah, but your personnel was completely different. People forget about that. They say that about Kenny too. It's like, yeah, but we had Ben back then. I'm saying Kenny is still a work in progress. I mean, he's just early still into his 2nd season. And remember, he was out half last season. So that was just an interesting, we need high-flying Dolphins. I mean, they've got some really speedsters over there, and they went over New England 24-17, which I think we knew they would. One of the games, the Thursday night game, this was really a tough game because after watching Quarterback on Netflix, I actually really appreciate Kirk Cousins. Not just a good guy, but just, I mean, he's just a good guy. But this was a tough one because they turned over the ball 3 times against the Bucs week 1, and now they were worse this week with 4 turnovers against Philly. But the biggest turnover, and this was a total what the football moment to start, the week 2 on Thursday Night Football, Justin Jefferson fumbled the ball out of the end zone at the 1-yard line. So they basically, if it goes out of the end zone, it's a touchback. It's not considered a fumble. And everybody, of course, because it happened to a star player, they're like, do away with the rule. The rule's been there for a long time. And Kirk Cousins also had a tough fumble in the third quarter that set up a short touchdown drive for the Eagles. But when you look at Kirk Cousins and the fact that except for that fumble, he still throws 3 touchdowns, still no interceptions, still, one of the most productive quarterbacks in the league. And he doesn't have a lot of protection. So, one of the things that I noticed in the Eagles game, you're always, especially for those of you who have Jalen Hurts as your fantasy quarterback, he's not running as much as he used to. And they're really using DeAndre Swift. I'm trying to pick him up off the waiver wire. And he only got 1 carry last week. So people are like, now you're using him? And so a lot of people dropped him. And I'm like, okay, he's out there. But his total rushing yards was the highest for any Eagles player since 2013. So 175 yards and a touchdown and 28 carries. And, Hurts came up with an occasional big play. He passed a 63-yard touchdown to Devontae Smith. But it was really Swift who carried this offense. And so, Kirk Cousins, him having 364 yards and 3 touchdowns, you can't blame that loss on him. And I think they're one of the better teams with an 0-2 record. So a lot of what the football moments, there's so many things that are going on. There were so many injured players in the Steelers game, our hearts go out to Nick Chubb, and we really hope that he recovers. But we also made a lot of history. TJ Watt now is the franchise leader for sacks. He had his first, pick six, or I should say fumble recovery for a touchdown, so his first touchdown in his career. And if you see our defense right now, you see the Steelers defense, you've got to be just really proud. And they say defenses win games. Well, with how much our offense is struggling right now, and hopefully they're going to continue to improve. I did see glimmers of improvement with Kenny towards the latter part of the game. And if we can just, I don't know, maybe Matt Canada needs to be on the field. That's where Todd Haley always was. That's where Wisenhunt always was. We have an OC that's up in the booth and all cozy, but he's not on the field talking to players. Being in someone's helmet versus actually in real time seeing what's going on the field, to me, that's different. And him and Tomlin can talk if he's on the field. So I'm like, get him out of the booth, get him on the field. Let him hear the chants. Let him hear what passion is going on with the Steelers fan base and see if he can, I would say trust his quarterback a little bit more to make some good decisions instead of just, when I saw that jet sweep again, I'm like, what are you doing? They're reading it like no tomorrow. Stop doing that. It's not a trick play anymore. It seems like it's just one of our plays that you write up. So the WTF moments in the Steeler game, to me, lie with our offensive coordinator. I'll stop with that rant because I'm sure you're going to hear it a lot from fans, and now you're podcasters. So anyway, let's hope week 3 is much better as we travel to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders at Allegiant Stadium. And we are the late game next Sunday, 9/24. So I'm excited for that game, and I really believe that we're going to win. So I think, again, if they can get after Garoppolo and really find some of the holes in that offense, I think it's going to be a great game. But we can't have our defense on the field 75% of the snaps, so that's not going to be good. Okay, everyone, make it a great rest of your week and a great day, and thank you for listening to the WTF podcast. I'm Terry Fletcher.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.